to the world. Subscribe now to the Hot 97 YouTube channel. It's Ebro in the Morning with Laura Stiles and Rosenberg.
Ebro in the Morning, Laura Stiles, Rosenberg. The brother Stephen A. Smith has joined the program again.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good morning.
What's going on, y'all? How y'all doing? Good morning.
We good, man. Look, I want to get right to it. You got a new book.
Yeah, man. I finally did it, bro. It's been a while. Everybody's been asking me to do it, especially, a lot of people in my inner circle and whatever. It took me a long time. People have been after me to write a book since I got let go by ESPN in 2009. And then after, when they came to me, Simon and Schuster and them talking to me about doing my memoir, I would have done it years earlier, but my mom, y'all know she passed away in 2017. Right. My mom had always asked me, wait until I pass away. Wait until I die. Do not write that book when I'm alive, because she knew that I was going to say some things about my upbringing, of course, giving all deference and praise to her. My father, not so much. And so because of that, my mother really, really didn't want me to write this book until she passed away. And she said, once I pass away, you can say what you want to say. Wow. She said, because I know how you are, and I know you're going to tell the truth, and I know you're going to be raw with it. So she said, go ahead and do it, but after I pass away. So I waited, and then even though she passed away in 2017, I was still reluctant. And then, my sisters and everybody gave me their blessing to go ahead and do it, and I did it.
How does the book break down in terms of like the timeline of your life? Is most of it spent on childhood in the beginning, or do you spend a lot of time on the recent years?
Well, I go from, childhood to, my upbringing and the battles that I had educationally to a lot of it is about my career, and especially obviously at ESPN, not just being let go, not just being brought back, but all of the controversies in between, before and during. And so, I go line by line, and I go just bringing it all. And some of the things that people have speculated about, I get into detail about it. And so I didn't hold back. I said what needed to be said about the things that I knew people wanted to learn about me, and the things that I wanted to say. And, it's a memoir. So you're going to do it. You got to do that. So it's a once in a lifetime thing, because y'all know how private I am. And I assure you, I won't do it again. So I just did it this one time and let it go.
And that was just what I wanted to ask you about this part of the convo is how cathartic was this? How painful was this? Are you, even though you're saying this is a one-time shot, how do you feel now that you've done it?
I'm glad it's over. It'll be hard pressed for me to ever write a book again, because it's very, very tedious, and I wrote it myself. And so because to sit down and to write 90,000 words on your own, to turn around and then have to trim that by about 10,000 because they didn't know I was going to write that much, to have to dot every I and cross every T, to have to go to ESPN and to let them know, look, I'm saying this, I'm saying this, I'm saying that, and have those conversations for your sisters, my 4 older sisters who I love dearly, Linda, Arlen, Abigail, and Carmen. All 4 of them didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. And it wasn't because they were mad. They weren't mad. It was just that there were so many memories that are attached to them as well. I wasn't the only one experiencing some of the things that I did growing up. They were right there with me. And they had buried those memories. And so, you bury it for decades and decades, and you move on with your life. And then all of a sudden, you're sitting down, you're reading this, and you're like, man, did you have to say that? Did you have to go there? Did you really have to reveal all of that? Right? And I was like, y'all told me to go ahead and do it. And they're like, we know. I said, did I lie? They're like, no. I said, isn't it my life? They're like, yes. And I said, then what you want me to do? And they were like, we know. It's just that it was hard to just relive it, because I was vivid with certain descriptions of what transpired. And they went through it too. And so remembering and recalling all of that was kind of painful to just endure and to go through. So in that sense, it was a bit shaky. It was a bit difficult to deal with, but it was necessary if you're going to do the book. And I don't regret doing it. The hardest part for me was going through the edits, because I had to read my book like 10 or 11 times. and that's 10 or 11 times I'm reliving some of that. That's 10 or 11 times I'm reliving my mother passing away and what I went through in that moment just 5 years ago. And so it was very, very hard in that regard. But again, it was necessary.
Do
Did
you
your
are you
sisters read it? Did your
Excuse me?
sisters read it once you were done, or did you kind of like let them read a couple chapters when it involved them?
No, 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 no. I let them read a couple of chapters. There's still a whole bunch of stuff involving my career and stuff that doesn't really have much to do with them. So they'll read that when they get the book. But what I did was I wrote chapters as it pertained to my family, my upbringing, etc. And I made sure that they all saw that beforehand. Even before the final edits and everything came in, I made sure they had the absolute raw version of it all because I didn't want to put in anything that they remotely challenged. I wanted to make sure that everything was factually on point because we're talking about decades ago, and there might be a detail or two I might have missed or whatever, and I didn't. And they read it and they didn't like some of the stuff that was in there because they felt like that's just between us. Why reveal that? But I said, you're gonna write a memoir. It's a memoir. There's a lot that I said there's a whole bunch of stuff about y'all I never said and never will say. Cause y'all my sisters, I love y'all and I don't believe in telling people business like that. I call you on the carpet for what you do publicly. If you know me, I don't give a damn who you are privately. That's your business. I don't violate that trust. But when I'm talking about myself, I'll say what the hell I want to say.
and Stephen A, are you a therapy guy? Or you go to therapy? Or was this therapy for you,
I
or both?
I went to therapy. I went to therapy when my mother died. I've never ever felt that level of misery, and I don't usually do it now because I'm just so busy. But I plan on going back.
Good for you.
Because it was really good for me to experience, believe it or not, which is shocking for me to say because I've never been a believer in it. But when my mother died, I was in a very, very dark place. I wasn't suicidal or anything like that, but I didn't care about life and death. I didn't care about anything because, it's amazing. And I say this to dudes, especially guys that are married. You're very, very lucky if you're a happily married man and you have that significant other. And here's why. Because you grow up and your mama is that one woman that loves you unconditionally. And then when you get married, you say that you found that significant other that your mom has passed that mantle to. And so even when she's gone, nobody replaces mama, but you've got that person in your life. What happens when you're single is that you wake up and and I swear to y'all, I never, ever, ever thought about this in my life until the day after my mother died. And I was watching First Take, and they did this beautiful tribute to my mother that just made the whole family just break down and start crying all over again the morning after she had passed away, just a few hours. And at that moment, I just laid in my house and I stood there. And it was the first time in my life on this earth that I said, the one woman who loved me most and loved me unconditionally is gone. And it was the loneliest feeling I've ever had in my life. I've lost my brother. I've lost my friends. I've lost some friends to the streets and all of that stuff. Because I grew up in Hollis, Queens. Half my brothers were in the game, the drug game and stuff like that. They gone now. My brother died in a car accident in 1992. So I've had a lot of loss in my life, but nothing compares to the loss of my mother. And when that happened, I was just in a dark, dark place. And therapy helped get me out of that. It helped that, and my daughters that helped me smile.
That's beautiful, bro. Yeah, because that feeling, I've lost both my parents, and
Yeah.
some days you just wake up and you're like, I don't have
Yeah.
parents. This is it. This is real, And
Yeah, it is.
when you have a child, and when you do have great family or significant other, it does, as you're articulating very well, it does bring some
Yeah.
feeling of comfort. Yeah.
Yeah.
To know that there are people
Yeah,
who
because
love you
you got
unconditionally.
somebody.
Yeah.
You got somebody, and so all of a sudden you regret not getting married and all of this other stuff, because now you looking and you don't necessarily have, and you miss that even more because it was something you never concerned yourself with, because you're gonna date, you're gonna be involved with somebody who knows what that will materialize into. But you got your sisters, you got your mom, you got people like that that love you, that you can communicate with and you can lean on in tough times. And when mom was gone, nothing could replace that. I mean,
That's
just
right.
nothing. You just realize, like, damn, it's I it's the person that loved me most, and the only person I felt loved me unconditionally is gone.
So,
And it was devastating, man.
so Stephen, before you even brought up the passing, I asked you. I mean, we joke with you a lot on the K Show. You're a man about town.
Yep.
You enjoy
Yeah.
some cities. You enjoy Miami, Florida. You enjoy Toronto, Ontario,
Absolutely.
Los Angeles,
Absolutely.
California. I know. But
Absolutely.
do you ever
Absolutely.
do you ever think about writing down that ironclad prenup and getting serious with someone?
I have nothing to think about. My prenup has already been written years ago. It's just about the signature.
Yes, it is.
I mean, there will be no marriage with me without a prenup. I assure you of that. Any woman that's in my life is somebody that I take thorough care of. There's no doubt about it. And as long as you don't betray me, and so many times people think about betrayal like, you mess with another dude or something. No, 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 no. There's a multitude of ways somebody can betray you. Betrayal to me is misrepresenting who you are, pretending to be something that you're not. That is what I don't tolerate. I don't give a damn who you are or
That's
what
right.
you are. As long as you real with it, we good. Because that means anything that I do from that point forward is my choice, as opposed to you robbing me of that choice because you misrepresented who you are. That is what I don't tolerate. But as long as you're that kind of woman in my life and I got means, I'm gonna always have your back in any capacity. As long as you're a good woman and you took care of business while you was with me, we good. So I don't look at it that from that standpoint. But in the same breath, you know what? You didn't scratch and claw and pound the pavement for me to get to where I am. So you ain't entitled to my pension. You ain't entitled to my 401k, my savings. I ain't giving you that. I'm not giving you that. I will treat you very, very well. And if you become my wife, well, then that's a different conversation. But until that moment come, enjoy me while you with me. Don't think that you entitled to my stuff that I don't want to give you if you gone. I'm very plain with that.
Listen, man, you preaching the gospel right now, sir. The
You
gospel.
damn right. Yes, absolutely. And then, not enough, in this day and age, you got men that's scared to express that, and I understand why, but I ain't one of those dudes. You don't put your hands on no woman, you don't disrespect her, you don't do all of those kind of things. You treat her to the best of her ability. You treat her like a queen. But damn it, if she ain't getting it done, she ain't getting it done. And by the way, fellas, if you ain't getting it done, you ain't getting it done. I was raised by 5 women. I'm very, very big on getting the job done. And when my mother used to complain about me, you can't be she's West Indian, had that West Indian accent. You can't gallivant around with every Mary Jane and Sue. That's what she used to say, it just like that, you know. And I used to come to my mom and I used to go like this, Mommy, are they leaving? I'm doing something right. So guess what? The problem ain't me. Now that don't mean I'm perfect, and it don't mean I do everything right, but it means by and large I get it done. So what you doing? I'm gonna do my job. What's your job? Whatever that job description is that we discuss amongst ourselves. Okay, fulfill your role. We good. You don't fulfill your role, I move on. It's very, very simple. And as you pointed out, there's a lot of places to move.
There's a lot of seas to swim in.
Yep, true.
Stephen
I
A.
ain't living
Smith.
like that. I'm not living like that, but I used to. Long time ago.
Stephen A. Smith, before we wrap, because I know you got a busy day ahead of you, and we appreciate you taking time. This book, when is it out? When can people expect it, pre-order? What's going on with the business side of it?
Man, the business side is beautiful, and I appreciate y'all, man, especially you, Ebro, because you and I have known each other for years, and we used to talk about some of the things, that we wanted to do, and both of us are doing exactly the kind of stuff that we talked about doing. So I really love revisiting those conversations with you. My book is entitled Straight Shooter. It comes out January 17th. I got an audio book that comes out then as well. You can go to straightshooterbook.com to get all of that. It hits the shelves then. It's already doing thousands upon thousands in pre-sales. So I'm very, very proud of that. For me, I'm just trying to do it right to the point where I become, a number one New York Times bestseller. That's the goal. Hopefully I'll pull it off or come pretty damn close to it. And I'm doing that. I'm doing my podcast, No Mercy with Stephen A. That's going well. So, and that goes to video come January 9th. Because I couldn't do video at the earlier part of with negotiate with ESPN and stuff, because I own and operate it. So I have to do it that way. And, so that goes to video January 9th. So January is going to be a big month for me. No question about it. There's a lot going on. And of course, I'm still doing First Take. You got to stay number one. You can't rest on your laurels. So all of that stuff is going on.
Speaking of, let's get into sports. Before
Sure.
we wrap, the last controversial moment for you was the Jerry Jones moment.
Yep.
And in retrospect, looking back at that, I saw a lot of the commentary. I saw your commentary. I saw what Jason Williams had to say when what he had to say about Jerry Jones. I thought it was all great conversation. I think one of the problems I have is we have yet to hear from Jerry Jones, and which for me is indicative of obviously privilege, a billionaire. Somebody doesn't feel like he's beholden to say anything or be held accountable or blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. Yes, it was a long time ago. However, it was in his teenage years where people knew right from wrong, even if that was socially accepted and where he was at the time. I would expect that I would hear from him something a little bit more substantial and less brush-offs. What is your take on what you have heard or haven't heard from Jerry Jones since that photo came out?
No disagreement with what you said. I think that's very much on point. I've reached out to Jerry Jones. I've asked for a one-on-one sit-down interview with him. He's respectfully declined, but I let him and his family know, you need to speak on this. That's what I feel. That's what you feel. Understand that it's not just that he's a billionaire, it's that he's an 80-year-old billionaire. So really, outside of not watching the Cowboys, what can you do to him at this point? That's what we got to ask ourselves sometimes. It's not like you Daniel Snyder and you're relatively young and got yourself in legal issues and need all the help that you can get because of the stuff that you were involved in. You're Jerry Jones. It's a photo from 66 years ago. You were just standing there, and your attitude is, I shouldn't have to answer those questions. So that's how he feels about it. I have no choice but to deal with it. My position is, while I totally agree with what you just said, I also stand by what my initial reaction to it was. Because what people were missing is that I'm not talking about Jerry Jones. I'm talking about us as black people. We got to be careful about what Pandora boxes we want to open. If you are in a still photo from 66 years ago, and somebody can use that to bring you down, what the hell can't they do to us? That's how I think. And so for me, from the standpoint of, okay, let's save our muscle and our fervor and our ire for stuff that really, really counts. In other words, what kind of impact we can really, really make. What are you going to do to Jerry Jones other than not watch the Cowboys? He didn't break any laws. He wasn't spitting in anybody's face. Seen doing that. He didn't hit anybody. What are you going to do?
We're not going to do anything to Jerry Jones. But that's also indicative of black folks' plight, right? And even when we're going and talking about Kyrie and Kanye and this, greater issue of something, a group of people being able to do something to them because of something that they said and having that social power. What you're saying is indicative of part of our greater issue, is that we should either A, accept terms that we don't like, because we have to
Mm-hmm.
somehow be careful or not start, as you put it, open Pandora's boxes we're not ready for. And I think that's what
Right.
makes people upset. What makes people, black folks specifically, upset is that, A, we're supposed to acquiesce, bend the knee, or accept some terms that we don't like
Right.
because we can't actually do something to the individual. We have to accept it. And what I want to make sure with a situation like Jerry Jones, and I think what people want to make sure is that if it was 100 years ago, if it was 150 years ago, 200 years ago, we're not going to just brush it off as if, oh, that happened a long time ago, and so there's nothing to there's nothing to see here. Move along. That's not okay.
Well, but that's not what I'm saying. And I get where you're coming from, Ebro, but that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when you're going to be angry about something, what are you angry about? Specifically, because him standing in a crowd on a still photo tells us what? It's subject to interpretation.
That's fair. That's fair.
Let me
but
finish.
what people want to hear is him say, yes, I was there, and now I look at that situation and it was wrong. If that's how he feels.
That's fine. That's fine. And I agree with that, which is why I asked for the interview.
Right.
What I'm saying is my reaction was off of the photo. The Washington Post wrote an article. The photo was the photo. And everybody was in an uproar for him standing there. And what I'm saying is, okay, Ebro is saying what he's saying is absolutely right, on point. We need to hear you speak on this, Jerry. We need to hear you say this was wrong, that those times was wrong, that the iniquities that were suffered by those students and by black people overall, particularly at that moment in time, was egregious, and it's something that our nation's history should be ashamed of and should exhaust all means and measures to make sure it's never repeated. But that's entirely different from, okay, he's sitting there in the photo, standing there in the photo. And because he's standing there in the photo, he must have felt this. He must have thought that. He must have been a participant.
But the fact that he hasn't said anything, and it hasn't been unequivocal to what you just quoted, tells me that an old white billionaire doesn't feel obligated to address pain.
And I agree. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I agree. But what I'm saying is, you're right because of Jerry's reaction to the photo. I was addressing the photo because I was in real time at that time when I gave my response. But I agree with you in terms of his silence at this particular moment in time does indict him, because he does need to speak up and speak out about it. He does. Absolutely. Exactly what you're saying is true.
And I get and what I think people were directing towards you, because I wasn't even really asking you so much about what you said. I was really just asking about where we are today. But specifically about what people I think were directing at you is they thought you were giving him a pass, which I didn't interpret what you were doing in that way, shape, or form at all. But what I feel today is often black folks and America in general look at our anger and our trauma and the things that trigger us and expect us to just be like, yeah, but that's an old white dude. Of course, you know what I'm saying? It was on that type of time back then. Right. And so we bring it to present day like we're just supposed to move on and focus on the now. But that's not what other groups do. Whether it was 40 years ago, 60, 70 years ago, they holding you accountable for whatever it is that you did. And people feel obligated to do so because there's social power that other groups have that black people may not exercise effectively. And there's other things that just don't come to terms. People don't come to terms with the shit they did in the past to black folks.
That's true. And I don't disagree with that either. But I'm going to tell you what my mentality is. A lot of times we spend a lot of energy focused on that. And the fact of the matter is other people are moving on. But we stuck in a rut because we're sitting there looking at them. Now, me personally, as a man that has worked in corporate America now for 35 years, a lot of stuff I expect, it doesn't surprise me. So when I see it, I'm like, okay, I see it for what it is. But based off of Jerry Jones' reaction or lack thereof to it is where I would reach the conclusions that Ebro has reached as well. What I'm not going to do is look at a dude standing in a photo from 66 years ago and say, that's what he's guilty of. I'm not going to do that because I don't want somebody doing that to me. I don't want somebody.
Apparently, based on his inaction and lack of commentary, people that responded that way aren't wrong.
Well, they're not wrong about him with what they're saying about him based off of his lack of a response. But to look at somebody and say, excuse me, I'm just saying, if you are in a crowd and somebody starts spewing anti-Semitic rhetoric, are you an anti-Semite? The answer would be no, or I don't know. You can't tell because Ebro is standing there listening. You can't do that. When you do something like that, it becomes very dangerous.
The active Jewish population that has a problem with it, they're gonna make sure you say something and speak your stance on it, and that takes us to the Kyrie moment because it wasn't so much that Kyrie tweeted a link.
Hold on, I interviewed the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, and he complained about an abundance of people who all happen to be white that they try to hold accountable. He talked about that, and he said, listen, we're consistent with how we come after anybody that we feel are in violation of our beliefs. He was unapologetic about that, and he stated that as a point of fact. When they sat up there and point these conditions out that Kyrie had to meet in order to come back, I spoke out against that. And Kyrie and I don't vibe with one another, but I was like, nah, you ain't doing that to this brother. That's wrong. The Anti-Defamation League said, Stephen A., we had nothing to do with that. We didn't do that. A lot of times we get attributed for forcing people's hand with stuff we had absolutely positively nothing to do with. It's other people that intervene, and they want to make themselves look good, and they put these pressure points out and attribute it to us. And we didn't do that. So again, when you talk to people and you find out some of these things, then you find out how salacious some of this stuff is and the game that's being played. So what I try to tell us is be hip to the game and march forward and get yours, because those folks are getting theirs. And I don't know about you, but let me tell you something. I'm sick and tired of making a whole bunch of noise and watching other people win. I want to win too. So guess what? If this the game y'all playing, oh, okay, I see what you're doing. So I'm going to find a way to make sure that I say what needs to be said. But in the same breath, I'm going to tip people off to the game so we can end up winning too, instead of lamenting how somebody else is winning at our expense.
That's real. We do have to multitask. The list is long for black folks. We got to multitask, and there's a lot of battlefronts, right? And it is exhaustive at times. And I appreciate your candor today. I appreciate that.
No doubt.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the great Stephen A. Smith.
Stephen A., when the book comes out, come back on, man. Let's talk about the book.
Anytime. You know that. All y'all got to do is call me. You know that.
There it is. Stephen A. Smith, thank you for your time today.
Appreciate
you,
Stephen.
Y'all take care.